All right, and welcome to case study number 20 of this series, so brilliantly titled Kirk's 40 Case Study Closings. I'm your host, Ryan Kirk, and these case studies range from vacant lots to custom luxury homes and total $2,042,081.71 in profits and equity without having to personally go see the property on some, with no cash, no credit of my own. It varies, and I'll explain. And I do it all with Flip Logic and 1888 Cash Offer. Now let's get into number 20 of the 40 case studies. And that brings us to 2301 North Alameda Avenue in San Bernardino, California. This is a lower ARV market in California, definitely blue collar, cheaper area. This is where definitely a hot area though. This properties always move, always sell there because it's so affordable. It's one of the affordable outer metro area of Los Angeles. Obviously not in Los Angeles County, which is huge, so it's even further out than that. But again, still accessible, maybe about an hour east of Los Angeles. So let's talk about it. You see the photos there, pretty clean, right? You'll notice that this is actually a well-kept property. It just needs upgrading, updating, improvement, remodel. So the lead type right off the MLS was tenant occupied. Okay, so this was definitely not vacant. This was occupied by a tenant. You can do deals occupied by tenants, and I'm going to show you how on this one. So the lead originated from an agent off the MLS. They sent it over to us because they know us as somebody who's looking for fixer type deals. This is something he came across. He was actually going to list it, and he knew that the tenant was leaving, and this may be something we'd be interested in. You could duplicate the same type of lead if you run a instant seller search or an instant lead search for sellers and from the MLS by agent. So in Flip Logic. Property condition, obviously cosmetic. Seller's motivation, they just wanted to cash out. ARV was $250. Repairs, we went $20 a square foot for this. And could they have done it for less? Possibly. But $20 a square foot, that's kind of like, if we're going to go like something like this, that's kind of clean, cosmetic, we typically go like 15 to 20 a foot. So that's why we ended up there. Maybe in your even lower ARV areas, maybe you're looking at closer to $10 a square foot, right? 15 for middle of the road, 20 for awful. This is our cosmetic is going to be 15 to 20. So we put it at 20. Our middle of the road here is about 25 to 30, and our awful is about 35 to 40 a foot for the price per square foot condition multiplier. To recap on that, our purchase price, we got the seller to say yes, always using that law of reciprocity. Hey, if we were to pay all cash, pay all the closing costs, and close on the date of your choice, or in 14 days, what's the best price you could do for us? $160 was the best price. We marketed it to our investors, and we had one of our investor cash buyers agree to pay $169. So our profit was $9,000 because we did put it under contract and do an assignment to the buyer, which gave us a dollar for dollar net from the $160 to $169. So we made $9,000, and they closed on it with cash. The investor came from, so we did the marketing blast to our existing list. Our existing list had an agent on it. That agent referred the buyer. So the agent made their commission above and beyond that, and it was whatever they added on. Sometimes agents, they can't add on, their 2 to 2.5% that they'd like to get. They'll add on whatever's reasonable for them to be able to have their buyer purchase and do the deal, and make an easy, quick commission off our deals that we market. So you can do the same thing. Also, you could run an instant lead search for buyers, and could have targeted them by sending it out in San Bernardino with maybe some keywords to target for, like cash buyer, real estate investor, we buy houses, any combination of keywords that would have led you to a buyer for the house like this, a cash buyer. And that's it. So we didn't use a deposit on this. We found our investor very quickly. They wired the deposit. Again, standard boilerplate on most contracts, 3 business days when your deposit has to be in. We typically will extend it out to 5 business days. It gives us a little more leeway to market the property, not have to spend, not have to tie money up in a deposit, but also not have to pay the wire transfer fees, sending out the deposit and having it come back. So we like to eliminate that. So we didn't have to put any money, so no cash and not even a deposit, because we were able to have our investor sign an assignment, wire their deposit before ours was due. And we didn't have to physically go see this property because we were able to send, it was not seller occupied, it was tenant occupied. So our investor was able to get over there, and it doesn't matter, they could fraternize with the tenants. They typically don't. Even if they do, whatever, they can talk about whatever they want, when will you be out of here, or, whatever. So that's fine. So we never had to go physically see the property at all either. The other thing about it being tenant occupied, most investors, they're typically going to want it delivered vacant at closing. And how you negotiate that into the contract or into the offer, the deal, is for it to be vacant at closing, right? And then you need to discuss that with the seller, and they need to discuss that with the tenant. And if the seller won't discuss it with the tenant, because some will say, you know what, I want nothing to do with talking to the tenant. If you want to talk to the tenant, go for it. More power to you. You talk to the tenant. So in that case, then we have to talk to the tenant, or you would have to talk to the tenant and say, listen, we plan to close this property in 14 days. That's our plan. Is it possible for you to be out by then? And see what their response is. Most of the time, they're either going to say, yeah, we'd be out of here in 14 days, but we'd like to have some cash to go. And you typically have to negotiate like a cash for keys, which can be somewhere around $2,500, maybe $3,000. Where does that come from? Well, that's going to come out of it's going to come from either you, or it's going to come from the seller. If you're doing an assignment that passes on, that's a pass-through, that passes to the investor on the contract, right? Because your assignment goes on to the buyer's settlement statement as a fee. So you're not paying for any of these closing costs. So that's something you do need to go over with the investor. If you have to let them know that, hey, you're going to have a $3,000 cash for keys payment on top of the $169 that you're going to have to pay. Can you handle that? And see what they say. If they say no, and you can't fit that into your margin, then you'd have to go back to the seller and say, hey, listen, the tenant, they're not going to vacate at closing. They want $3,000 cash for keys. We need you to help us out with that. We need to adjust the price from, say, $160 to $157, and see what the seller says. If the seller says, no, I'm not willing to do that, you can say, well, listen, we're ready to go non-contingent, close on time. We need that adjustment, or maybe you can negotiate for them to split the difference. Split it in half. They'd help you out with half. So something that you can use, but that's how you can get a deal done that's occupied or tenant occupied. And most tenants, they'll be cooperative. They may want more time. They may want 30-day notice, and they may want cash for keys, to which you then just extend the close of escrow to 30 days. But of course, you always run it by your investor. Hey, it's going to be 30 days before the tenant can be out of here. Are you willing to close on it as is? And then just give them their cash for keys once they give you the keys, and it's broom swept and they're out. Oftentimes the investor is going to say, nope, I don't want to risk it. Let's just extend the closing date to close when it's vacant. So no big deal either way, but that's the workaround. That's how you work with a tenant occupied property. You always go to the seller and then go to the tenant. How long do you need to be out of here? And, can we give you, $2,500 for the trouble? All right. So that's it. Statistically, only 10% of YouTube videos are watched until the end. So if you're in that 10%, you're a hustler, persistent, determined to succeed, and I wish you much success. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to working with you.